Welcome to episode 216 of the Ski Podcast, and thanks for joining us, listener. Today, we're going to be discussing all the latest news from Courchevel, getting an update on the summer in Les Alpes, and finding out about the new Northern Snow Show. Now, my name is Iain Martin. I'd like to introduce my guest today. I'm delighted to be joined today by two regular contributors to the show, as they both very kindly provide us with snow reports through the winter. But today, I'm delighted to be able to have a little bit more time to talk about their resorts in more detail. So firstly, we have Alex Armand from Tip Top Ski Coaching in Les Alpes. Hi, Alex. How are you?
Hi there. Yeah, very well, thank you.
Whereabouts are you today?
Today I'm in Provence, actually, the summer season in Les Alpes. Just kicking off for the mountain biking and things, but the skiing has finished for me. So I've got a week in Provence at our gîte.
Lovely. Okay, well, we'll be coming on to summer in due course. Secondly, my second guest on the show today, I don't think this will be confusing for listeners, as your voices are pretty different, but it's another Alex. So this time, YouTuber Alex Irwin from 150 Days of Winter.
Hello, Iain.
Hi, and how are you going today?
Good. The sun is out and the summer has finally started in Courchevel.
It sounds a bit like the UK. It's been absolutely rubbish here, but today it is actually sunny. You are in Courchevel, Alex?
I'm up in 1850, yes.
So I really wanted to thank both of you for all of your snow reports this season. Regular listeners will know your voices because you've contributed throughout the season. But a question I like to ask all of my guests, and maybe I can guess what the answers are going to be, but is when did you ski or snowboard last? Alex Armand, when was that?
Last week.
Lovely. That'll make us all, or most listeners, very jealous. That was on the glacier in Les Alpes, was it?
Yeah, that's correct. So the glacier's been open, since the end of the official winter season. The glacier opened the next day and has been open right through till this Sunday, when it closed for the end of what we now call the spring summer skiing.
Yeah, actually, I was going to talk about this later, but let's discuss it now. As you've mentioned, you were skiing up there. So there was a lot of snow towards the end of the season. I was in Les Alpes in April, and skiing conditions were cracking, really. So Les Alpes actually stayed open. Effectively, the summer skiing season started the day after the winter season finished. So how was skiing through May, June, and into July then?
Absolutely amazing. What you experienced in April just continued, basically. So we had fresh snow up on the glacier. In May, I was skiing fresh powder every morning. In blue skies and sunshine sometimes. We had a cycle of weather that was what everybody dreams about on their skiing holiday. Snow overnight and blue skies during the day. So yeah, the snow, we've had a record amount of piece bashed snow on the glacier, which is a record amount of snow having fallen on the glacier. The glacier has closed now on the 7th. Because we have to choose a date. It's still perfectly skiable. The glacier is still in great condition. And also because Les Alpes has invested in a new Jandri Express lift called the 3S. They cross over the old lift and the new lift. So in order to be ready for the first day of winter, they need to cut the cable of the old Jandri lift, which has been done. And now they're pulling through the new cable on the 3S as we speak.
Yeah, that 3S lift is going to be extremely impressive. Regular listeners will know. I'll have to check what episode it is, but I'll put a link into the show notes. But I spoke to Anthony Guzman from the lift company about it and put together a video about it. And I know that that's going to be opening later this year. I also wrote about those cables being cut. So that is quite a big deal. And I think it's also, I know you said it could have stayed open, but, strategically, Les Alpes took the choice to take advantage of that good end of season snow and bring that ski summer season forward. And we will come on to what else you can do in Les Alpes in the summer a little bit later on. When I was there in April, I could see as I was going up the T-bars on the glacier over to the right-hand side, they were beginning to shape the park there. And there's a massive park up on that glacier in Les Alpes in summer, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a huge park. So there's rails, jumps of all levels for beginners right through to those people that are training for professional level skiing. There's normally a ski across and a board across up there as well. There's an area specifically for racing. We host a lot of national teams. We've seen the French team, the Canadian team, the Italian team over the spring skiing as well. And there's also a huge amount of free skiing area. With the summer season, like you say, becoming a spring season, we were able to keep open the signal lift till nearly the end of the skiing, which gives us 3 extra nice long runs to ski.
Yeah, that is a really big vertical drop. If you compare it, if I compare it to, let's say, I've been skiing in Zermatt, I suppose if you actually went from the top of the Klein Matterhorn, you could get a similar drop. But typically, you're just going up the T-bar there and skiing to the bottom alongside all of the race piece, and it's not so much. Whereas, can you still do that little? If you were skiing down to signal to the bottom of that lift, you can cut to your right off the glacier and kind of do some off-piste there. Would that be open? Would there have been enough snow there?
I think you mean the sheen. So from the T-bar down through the sheen. Yes, so it's still classed as glacial, so with caution. But yes, fantastic.
Oh, brilliant. Okay, well, we'll come back to Ladies Alp in summer a little bit later on. Alex, same question for you, which I know the answer to, and regular listeners to the show will know the answer to as well. But when did you ski or snowboard last?
Well, I'm glad that I'm not alone in saying that I was skiing 2 weeks ago on the opening day of when Teen opened for the summer, it's become a regular thing for me to do.
For sure. So I was saying about how the different glaciers have decided, when their summer season is going to work. Like Val d'Isère went early. We had Johnny Smith telling us a bit about Val d'Isère, and the area's way smaller over there. But how was it in Teen then? I noticed a really interesting, I think it was a video that you shared where side by side you compared the snow cover on the same date last year to this year, and it looked really similar to me.
It was. Compared to last year, there was actually more snow, I would say, than there was. And last year was a really good snow year as well. The only difference being that if you watch the video, it looks like I have like a sepia tone on this year's one, because unfortunately there was a rather heavy covering of Saharan sand. But apart from that, I cannot complain. The snow conditions were slightly softer in the morning, but they didn't degrade as they would do normally towards midday.
And also over in Teen, were there a lot of people there specifically for race training, or was it more recreational skiers?
Well, I was very lucky to bump into the Canadian freestyle mogul team who were training up at the top of the glacier, and I love watching people do moguls. I'm old enough to remember when that was the only thing that people did, and so to watch people do jumps and do bumps properly, I just geek out over that sort of stuff.
Excellent. And just to clarify, then, some people might be shocked if they hear about the sight of sand on the snow, but that's actually not that uncommon. I mean, I've seen that several times. I've got a feeling I might have seen it I certainly saw it this winter. Did I see it in Ladies Alp in April, maybe, Alex Almond?
I think you probably did. It's a phenomenon that we never used to see. It would be once every 10 years or something. And over the last few years, I'm guessing with global warming, changing the direction of the winds, the southerly wind, we're starting to see it a lot more. And like you, Alex, yes, we had a Saharan sand arrive on the glacier as well.
Yeah, it can look quite odd, that definitely, but it doesn't affect the snow as far as I can see. Would that be the case for you, Alex Irwin, when you were in Teen?
Not at all. Again, it looks worse on camera. It looks almost muddy, but I had a freshly waxed pair of skis and they went perfectly fine. I have nothing to complain about.
Okay. Well, listener, if you did listen to our last episode 215, you'll know that Rachel, my guest from Australia, said it's often a slow start to the season in Australia and New Zealand. And I'm pleased to report they've been getting some regular top-ups and the lifts are opening up in both of those two countries now. And listener, if you'd like an insight into the world of skiing in Australia, you should listen to that episode 215. Also in 215, I spoke to Lindsay Coleman about the London Snow Show, which is coming up this autumn. Now, I appreciate not all of our UK listeners will be able to make it to London, but the good news is there's going to be a Northern Snow Show this year as well. That's going to take place in early October at the indoor snow slope Chill Factory in Manchester. And I spoke to Managing Director Iain Brown about that show. I'm delighted to be talking to Iain Brown, Managing Director of the Snow Centre and Chill Factory in Manchester. And the reason I wanted to have you on, Iain, we were at an event recently. We were having a little chat about a new event that you've got coming up called is it called the Northern Snow Show?
It is indeed the Northern Snow Show.
Okay, and when and where is the Northern Snow Show?
So this will be Saturday the 5th, Sunday the 6th of October at the Chill Factory in Manchester.
Now, to me, this seems really good because back in the day, we used to have a show in Manchester as well as Birmingham and all over the country, etc. But was the end of that show in Birmingham part of your motivation for putting something on?
Yeah, partly. It was certainly a trigger for doing it this year. I mean, we've always had a vision of wanting to support the UK snow sports industry and be an integral part of it. And we've always supported the London show, and indeed we'll be there this year. And when we realised Birmingham was not happening, it just seemed to us, we always have a winter launch weekend at the Snow Centre and Chill Factory, end of September, early October. We've always called it Get Your Kit Out, which is always about get back up to the loft or go to your garage after a long summer, get your kit, come down, have a ski, get ready for winter. So we decided, having already got a date in mind, why not build on that and put something together? Everybody can join in, brands can come down, guests can come down.
Excellent. So what will be going on over those 2 days then? It's not just getting out and having the opportunity to ski on the slope.
I'm delighted with the response we've had. I mean, obviously, we know many people in the industry. We have lots of relationships, lots of partners. Yeah, the obvious bit is snow. That's what makes it different, real snow. So there'll be offers on lessons. There'll be offers on lift passes. But it's more about the brands coming down, ski testing, board testing, clothing brands, and lots of things happening.
Obviously, you need to pay to go on the slope. Is there a cost to, meet the brands in the exhibition area itself?
No, not at all. Everything's free. We really want to make this a big success, a real collaborative approach, and we want to fill the place over the weekend. So, yeah, of course, to actually go on the slope, there would be a charge, or to take part in the lesson. But to actually come along to the show, meet the brands, no charge at all.
And a Chill Factory itself, I've skied there a few years ago, but it's one of the longer indoor slopes in the UK, isn't it?
It's the largest one. It's the longest one indeed.
How long is it?
It's 180 meters. So to put that in context, Snow Centre, which others will know, is around 140 meters. So yeah, it is significantly bigger.
Yeah, and I went there. I kind of combined it with a trip to go and see Man United, but it's in that part of town, in the Trafford, the western part of Manchester.
Yeah, it's easy to get to. I mean, not being a Man United fan, I always close my eyes when I get my taxi from Manchester Piccadilly, which is only 20 minutes out to Trafford and to Chill Factory.
So what I'll do is I'll put a link into the show notes, but just remind me again what the dates are.
The 5th and 6th of October.
That's brilliant, Iain. All right, well, I look forward to that. I have put it in my diary. I don't know if I'll be able to get up there. Maybe it will depend if I can get a ticket to a Man United game for the same weekend. Thanks so much. Right, I'm going to come back to you, Alex Amon, talk about Ladies Out in summer. You mentioned, it was a really strong end to the season. You had a lot of snow coming down in May as well. And again, if listeners listen to the last episode, they will be aware of some serious flooding that has gone on in the Alps, but particularly in the Parc des Écrins, which is that area where Ladies Out is. I wondered if I could ask you about that. I'm aware that village, La Berarde, I think it's called, was severely damaged. What's the current situation there?
So it's all very sad. La Berarde was basically washed away. 97 people were rescued. Thank goodness there's a post for the PGHM, which is the mountain police in the village, and they were able to save everybody. So there were no deaths. They moved everybody out of their houses when they saw the risk happening. That flood obviously continued down the valley, where people will know perhaps more into Saint Christophe and into Venosque. The rivers just completely burst their banks. The amount of water was phenomenal. The road's been washed away between the turn-off from Bourg-d'Oisans to Venosque, then again from between Venosque and Saint Christophe, and then they got obviously again between Saint Christophe and La Berarde. La Berarde is a summer village that is famous for mountaineering. So anybody who's into mountaineering will know of La Berarde. It's probably the mountaineering mecca of the French Alps. And Saint Christophe people will have heard of by way of skiing, because we can ski down the back of Les Deux Alpes down to Saint Christophe, stopping at Le Corday to see Marie-Claude for some lunch when we get there. And then obviously people will know Venosque because it's attached into Les Deux Alpes. As it stands at the moment, the prefecture have decided that it's impossible to allow tourists back into the valley, up to La Berarde anyway, until Toussaint, because they need to secure the road, they need to rebuild the road, and they need to put some security measures in place to ensure that the same things don't happen again. La Berarde houses are uninhabitable. The church, which is from the 1892 actually, has almost completely washed away. The whole valley, the whole area is devastated by what has happened, and mobilised to help those people that have lost their businesses, their summer businesses, their homes, their belongings, things of sentimental value that we don't think about, that were in those houses in the church. So, for example, the cycling club of Beaudoison, UC Oison, organised a fundraising event last Saturday, raising money for the Association of La Berarde to help people. There were also just giving sites, Litchi is in French, that people can donate money towards helping these people reconstruct their village and their lives. Obviously, the impact for this summer is huge on not only those people within the village, but also the mountain refuges.
That actually is really interesting because you're putting it into context of people's regular lives there. It's kind of easy to sort of read about a village that has been flooded or something like that. I mean, I think I read, or I posted elsewhere, that there's lobbying for a serious amount of funding from the state to declare it an emergency. I think it's going to take like €1 million to do all of the repairs that are required.
I think probably the real answer is that that's still being looked at and worked out. People weren't able to go straight back up to La Berarde after the accident, so it's taking people time. They are reconstructing the road so that people can get back and start clearing out their houses and what have you.
I was hoping to be out in Les Deux Alpes last weekend, but changing circumstances meant I wasn't able to make that. I wondered if there'd been any flooding in resort as well. You mentioned Venosque, which some people would know, but what about in Les Deux Alpes?
No, so I think that's a really important point to make, that Les Deux Alpes is open as usual. There's no flooding at all. Everything's open as it should be. And also it is just that valley. There are other places like the Plateau de Paris and other areas around. There's heaps of the equivalent of walking that you can do in the area in the Oisin Valley. Tourists shouldn't be put off by the fact that that valley is closed for the time being. There's still lots to do. Everything's still in order. Please do come and visit us. And the tourist officers are all mobilised in order to help you to adapt your plans and to be able to still enjoy your holidays.
For sure. I mean, I know that there's a lot going on. I noticed actually on Strava, which is the social network that I'm most interested in, that one of my friends had been hiking around from Col de Lotteret in a tour that went through the Parc des Écrins, but obviously it wasn't in that particular part of the valley. But you mentioned Les Deux Alpes is open and the actual skiing area has closed now, but it's an incredibly active resort in summer. Outside of just skiing, there's a huge amount of mountain biking that goes on there, a lot of different competitions. I think I'm right in saying, Alex, that you are a qualified VTT instructor as well?
Yeah, that's right. So I teach biking, road biking, mountain biking, electric biking. There's heaps of stuff to do around Les Deux Alpes and in the valley. So do come and see us for that if you would like to. The summer season has started, which is hiking, biking. There's heaps of events going on in the village. There's a fête de foin. There's all sorts of different things. This weekend, there's a big competition of urban mountain biking. So there's heaps of stuff to do in Deux Alpes and all around in the neighbouring villages. Venosque, going back to the floods, is still open. You can access it via the telecabine that goes down from resort. And we're all trying to go down, have lunches there and things like that to try and support the local community of Venosque.
You cover a lot of bases as far as cycling is concerned. I'm busy imagining your garage or your shed or something where you've probably got half a dozen bikes in there, along with all your skis from the winter. But of all of those, then, like I've tried e-biking actually in Les Deux Alpes. I've done lots of road biking in the Alps. I'm less keen on downhill mountain biking. It kind of, I don't mind going fast on a pair of skis, but I always feel a little bit nervous when I'm on a bike. But do you have a favourite of all those, different kind of disciplines, different types of cycling?
Wow, that's a difficult question. I don't think I do. I love them all. You get to see different things, different places, different experiences, different feelings, different sentiments on all of them. Climbing up Alpe d'Huez, for example, on your road bike is a very different feeling from coming down a downhill track in Les Deux Alpes. But they all put a smile on your face in a different way.
One of the events that definitely is only for experienced riders that comes out. I don't know when it is later in the summer, is the Mountain of Hell. Do you want to just explain what that is?
Yeah, for sure. So the Mountain of Hell starts at 3,400 meters on the snow, so on one side of the glacier, and everybody goes, they're in line. So the day before you do your qualifying, I guess the goal is to be in the front line, and then you can get off the snow as quick as possible. There's not much turning, not much braking possible on the snow, so you've just got to go. And then it goes all the way down to the village of Vinosk, actually. So a huge vertical distance. There's often a little bit of climbing in there. It's an enduro race rather than a downhill race. So you've got to make your decision whether you want your downhill bike for going fast on the downhill bits, or whether you want to be able to pedal quickly for the uphill bits. We have some of the biggest mountain bike riders here. We have our ambassador Adrien Laurent from Les Deux Alpes, who takes part. We have Kieran Brun, who comes and takes part. So really, those people from the top level of mountain biking. And it's one of the best races to watch. Strategically, you need to be placed up on the glacier or at the entrance to the Black Garden at Vinosk is another good place to be.
Well, I have seen that footage before, and I will put a link into the show notes. It is absolutely terrifying. Question kind of outside of all of that, because Sam Haddad brought this up in relation to the new Le Grave lift that is going to be installed. I wonder if you had any views on that at all. It seems to be mixed as to whether people see this as a big step forward or a retrograde measure.
I think my opinion is probably to wait and see a little bit more. The exact plans aren't out. How it's going to affect how we work is still in question. So I'm eagerly watching and waiting to make my full opinion on it.
Well, that's a very diplomatic answer. I'm still trying to arrange an interview, if I can, with Iain, the lift company, to get more information about that. But that's brilliant, Alex. Thanks so much for that. And, I'm very jealous, but have a great time in Les Deux Alpes this summer. Alex Irwin, I'm going to turn to you now, if that's okay. I introduced you as a YouTuber. Let's have a little start by having a chat about the channel itself. It's called 150 Days of Winter, which I presume is a nod to one of my favourite rom-coms, 500 Days of Summer. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm a bit of a movie geek, but 150 days is the date from like the 1st of December till the end of April. Roughly.
When did you start the channel?
We're currently on season number 8 at the moment. So that would be 8 years ago that I started doing this on a whim.
And now you have, how many subscribers do you have?
I have a rather pitiful, in the scale of things, about 3,000 subscribers. But they are 3,000 subscribers I am heavily proud of.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's pitiful at all. It's a niche area, and I know you have a lot of regular viewers. Before we start talking about recent videos that you've done or videos I've seen on your channel that I've enjoyed, I wonder if I could just ask you about the Saulire cable car. That has been out of action for several years now, but it's my understanding that will be opening again this winter. Have you got an inside track on that at all, Alex?
I walked up there about a month ago. All I can say is there's a big sign that says opening this winter, which is more than there was before. When the cabins arrive and when it's all being tested, I will certainly be out there filming. But at the moment, I don't know exactly when that's going to happen.
Maybe that's a loaded question, because I was at this Three Valleys event last week or 2 weeks ago, whenever it was, when they did say that it is the planned opening day is going to be something like the 6th of December, which I'm kind of penciled into my diary to see if I can get out there for that. But maybe for the benefit of listeners who don't know why it's not running. I mean, this is the largest cable car in the Three Valleys. I think it's 120 seater or something like that. But it's been out of action for 3 winters. Do you want to explain why that is, how that happened?
Well, quite embarrassingly, at the end of every winter and at the end of every summer, they have to do a safety test on it. And I think they fill it full of sandbags to give it the full weight. And then they wait to see if the safety brakes work. And 3 years ago, they didn't. And what was even worse was from what I understand, the entire Mary was there watching the demonstration as this thing plowed into the base station, there must have been a lot of red faces.
It looked bad. I think you were maybe one of the first people on the scene there, being a local to share photos on social media, etc. But the cabins themselves were actually damaged so significantly that they have had to be both replaced. Is that right?
The one at the bottom, of course, the cradle at the bottom is all concrete. The cradle at the top is like a metal frame. The cabin at the top just like went around to like an obscure angle. The one at the bottom came into contact with the concrete and was like a tin can. Yeah, not good.
It hasn't really affected things. I mean, I have skied in Courchevel in that time. You've got the Vizelle, which takes you up, in the Saulire direction. But it just means it's slightly, if you were in Courchevel, I suppose you could go via Col de Loz. But if you're in Courchevel and you're thinking about skiing over to Mirabel, just means it adds a little bit more onto journey. Or you have that very boring long traverse from the top of Vizelle.
The people who mainly benefit are people who want to walk over to Mirabel, because they can go up there and then take the cable car down to Mirabel, because you're not allowed to actually walk up the piece from Vizelle up to there. And ski instructors like it because it gives them easy access to the couloirs, which are directly below it.
Of course, yeah, I forgot about that. So have those couloirs become a bit more exclusive in the last few years? I suppose you can still access them from coming up, is it Bergen-Saulire on the other side from Mirabel?
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a 3 Valley pass to go down and take the lift up from Mirabel. As a joke, every year I rate people's descents of the Grand Couloir, pointing out like how out of the depth they are and things like that. Don't get me wrong, there are still loads of people who do it because it's that thing that you have to do in Courchevel.
It can be very testing. If I recall correctly, the closer you are to the cable car, the more difficult it is. So sous la téléphérique is the couloir immediately underneath that Saulire one, which if you wish to, you can kind of go off the edge of the terrace, the cafe balcony there. Is that right?
You can, only if your name is Mr. Candide Thovex, who makes it look very easy. And only when you go down the path towards the Grand Couloir and you look over the side and you go, maybe I'll leave that for another day and carry on.
I'll put a link to that Candide video because that was pretty scary. Do you think everybody in that video was like a regular skier? Do you think any of them were sort of stooges? Because he was skiing very, very fast and coming down on the piste, wasn't he?
Candide makes things that are incredibly difficult look very easy. I feel that anybody who is like, oh, that it looks like a blue run he's going down, it's anything but that. And you have to give like major respect to the man. Rather like any professional skier, you watch the women do the giant slalom and you go, that looks like a blue run. It's actually a nice icy steep face, but that doesn't come across.
Viewers, if you've never seen it, it is pretty stunning. I mean, you could spend hours watching all of his videos and it's incredibly entertaining. I've got another question for you as well. In episode 214, Sam Haddad brought up the Non-JO campaign, which is this, I suppose it's like an anti-Winter Olympics campaign because, later on this month, it looks like the IOC are going to confirm that the Winter Olympics 2030 are going to come to France. Courchevel will be, hosting some of those events. Have you seen any evidence of that, anti-lobby around?
Not at all, but I respect the fact that at least they will be reusing large set pieces like the ski jump and the bobsleigh, which were built back for 1992. The major thing that people have against the Olympics nowadays is the huge costs that go into it to build these things that only get used once. Don't get me wrong, the ski jump and the bobsled still need like a coat of paint to like bring them back to something that's presentable. But they are very much usable, and I would stand behind France getting the Olympic bid.
Yeah, as you happen to live in Courchevel 1850, you'd be right in the centre of the Winter Olympics, which would be kind of fun as well, right?
Well, surprisingly, the first time I ever came to Courchevel was in December 1991, just before the first Winter Olympics. And the only reason we came just before is because everyone said, it's going to be full. You won't be able to stay anywhere. And it turned out that actually we could have turned up for the actual races. And so, yes, I've been here that long.
Yeah, well, I think that just underlines the amount of experience and knowledge you have of the area. You are based in Courchevel, but you obviously cover a lot more than that. Let's have a little chat about some of your videos. Last winter, you published a video about the ice cave in Val Thorens, which Stu Brass mentioned in my interview with him in episode 213. Now, I did 4 winters in the Three Valleys, and I don't remember it. Now, maybe I was too busy because I was a lot younger doing, other things, or probably working, maybe. But has it always been there, or is this a relatively new thing?
I never heard about it before this winter. It's a bit off the beaten path, although it's not very difficult to get to. You go up Peclay, and then you take a traverse just before the Red Piste of Christine. So it's not difficult to get to. I went there in March, by which time everyone in the world had posted videos of this. And it had snowed quite a bit beforehand. So the entrance to it was quite small compared to what people were doing it in December and January. It's a surreal experience.
For the benefit of the listener, you just want to explain what we talk about here. I mean, I just said an ice cave. That probably doesn't really explain it very well.
But it's more of an ice hole, ice tunnel, so to speak. And when you go through it, you can see the ice on the ceiling mixed with the rocks. It's something you don't see every day. You have to appreciate it. And in the end, we actually skied it twice to get some more footage. I wish it was longer. It was great.
It's interesting. I mean, maybe that's to do with, glaciers move, ice moves over time. Maybe it's just formed more recently. But it sounds like one of those Three Valley secrets. And, I'll put a link to that video. Now, Courchevel is your, let's say, specialist area. I wondered if I could ask you, one of the videos I enjoyed last year was busting the myth that Courchevel is falling apart because there are no Russians there anymore. A lot of people, they just live on these stereotypes that Courchevel is full of Russians. And it's not quite like that, is it?
I think you have to thank the tabloid newspapers for hyping up things like the Russians. Don't get me wrong. There was a period when Russians were the nouveau riche group of people who came to resort. But Courchevel in general doesn't just accept rubles. Any type of money is acceptable. There are groups of very wealthy Brazilians. There are very wealthy groups from all around the world. At the moment, we have Arabs, the largest group of people who come to resort.
And so, this concept that, because I think plenty of newspapers, maybe it is a good tabloid headline. Businesses in Courchevel were going to go under without all these Russians, oligarchs coming in and spending money. Maybe there are some really high-end places that are struggling, but they're being populated by Arabs as well. It's just not the case, right?
It sounds good and it makes a good headline, but in the end, one group of money disappears and it's filled with the next group of money. I've been here so long that I've just become immune to seeing the trappings of wealth. One group disappears and they're filled with another one.
You are very good at sharing on your socials, pictures of what you might call those trappings of wealth when various high-end vehicles, travel through Courchevel or are parked outside illegally in different places. But it's not just Courchevel on the channel. One of the videos that really stands out in my mind that I remember was a visit you did to the gondola graveyard, which I've written about. This is an amazing place. That's nowhere near Courchevel. It's down in the valley somewhere, right?
It's down near, I'm going to say Morzine. It's on the way it's in a little village called Tanige. And it's like a déchetterie for cabins. And they deal with a lot of current stuff that every time Courchevel gets rid of a lift, or any of these resorts get rid of lifts, they all get taken there to be sold off. But they also have really nice old cabins. And again, the geek in me is just wow. I was going to go there and film for 10 minutes. I ended up filming for half an hour because I was just pointing at things going, oh my God, that's, and everything's got a name on it. And so you can tell where it's from. Just absolutely amazing.
I love that one. It was really evocative. Seeing, as you mentioned, some of these really old vintage lifts from different eras, days gone by. In fact, anyone who really does want to geek out over lifts should listen to my interview with Peter Landsman from LiftBlog over in the States. He is an absolute expert, and he would really enjoy it. But there you go. I recommend that one as well. I'm just going to ask you about one more, because there's so many videos we could talk about them for ages. Somehow, I don't know how you did this, you can tell us, but you were like a volunteer for avalanche dog training one time. And that's one of the most satisfying videos I've ever seen, because you're like buried in the snow and you've got this dog digging its way through to you to dig you out, right?
It was completely. It was purely on a whim, and on literally a day, someone said, "Oh, the security de piste are looking for victims," and so I skied up there with my camera equipment, and I was buried in a hole that was very safe, and so it was nothing like actually being caught in an avalanche. But even with the radio in my hand and with the scent pack in my hand, that when the piste basher fills the hole up, my heart went a little bit like faster briefly, but it gives you more respect for like the work that these people do. They don't just sit around in cabins at the top of the mountain drinking coffee. They actually are prepared to save lives. For the dogs, it's a game, and the dogs love just playing. But that playing involves rescuing people, and so it's great.
Yeah.
It was,
I felt that in the video. I felt that sense of I was in there, because you got the camera on the inside, you get closed off, you're now trapped within snow, and then that amazingly beautiful, liberating, but also just wonderfully satisfying feeling when this very excited dog bursts its way through to you. I thoroughly recommend that one. Excellent, Alex. I really enjoyed that. And, listener, if you'd like to find out more about or watch Alex's videos, I'm going to put a link into the show notes and some specific links to some of them. But it's very entertaining. So keep up the great work, Alex. Now, I enjoy all feedback about the show. I like to know what you think, especially about our features. So please contact me on social at The Ski Podcast, or by email, theskipodcast@gmail.com. I'd like to thank Sasha Ryazantsev. Apologies if I mangled your surname. Pretty sure I got that wrong. For buying me a coffee. Sasha said, "Thanks for all the podcasts. I always listen to them as they remind me of all those places we've skied and boarded over the years." So appreciate that, Sasha. And if you like the podcast, listener, there are 3 things you can do to help. You can review us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And I believe you can now leave a comment on Spotify too. You can subscribe so you never miss an episode. Or, like Sasha, you can buy me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/The Ski Podcast. Now, you can follow me at Skipedia and the podcast at The Ski Podcast. There are now 221 episodes of The Ski Podcast to catch up with, and 150 of those were listened to in the last week. So if you're missing the snow, there's so much to listen to in that back catalogue. Just go to theskipodcast.com, search around the tags and categories, and you're bound to find something of interest to you. I also noticed in the stats that 58% of our listeners in the last week were in the UK, 14% in the States, and that leaves the remaining 28% from across the world, including in the last 7 days in South Korea, Mexico, Brazil, and South Africa. So all that remains is to thank my guest today, Alex Armand. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Alex Irwin, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'd like to thank you both as well for all your snow reports this winter. And finally, listener, thank you for joining us wherever in the world you're listening right now. And until next time, goodbye.